Hey, it's Huntington Z's Todd here. I was looking at an old document that I prepared in the early days of when I got Huntington's disease. So today I'm going to be talking about adult onset Huntington's disease. What difference does a year make? I've been trying to give information that's helpful for folks that are facing the battle of just figuring this out with their family, but also people that are living with it, daily and weekly. In my comments, I always see, Todd, I appreciate it. Keep going. Those do motivate me, and I'm trying to tell you that as time goes on, every year does make a difference. So I'm going to talk about year one, year five, and then year where I'm at now, about year 12. Again, I talked about it before, but I have a CAG of 41, and I'm actually 64 almost. I think I keep saying I'm 64, but I'll do that this year. I've had a little bit of a stressful, couple of weeks after some of that dilemma that I faced in some of the work that I was doing. I'm trying to calm down through all that, move on. My goal for this year was to spend time with my kids, my family, do as much as I can. I think I might have talked about that. But this is a document back in 2014. 2014, so now what is it? It's 2026. So again, about 12 years ago. So this document, I typed it at the time. I was very proficient at Word. I was very proficient. Did my little doodad down the bottom there. Showed what date I'd typed it. I did about 3 pages of this. And it just talked about, where I was at then. I did this as an exercise at the time because then, in that stage, Huntington's disease wasn't that big of a negative in my life. Again, I was diagnosed at 52. That's typed up here. I did my family history, early symptoms, struggles that I was having then. But just then, I did, and then I did from the age of from 54 until I turned 56. Because again, I got it at 50. But anyway, this list is something I typed up. I did a Word document. I don't even have Word anymore available on a computer. If I got on Word, if I wanted to do that, some of this stuff seems very easy to people. My brain does not make that easy. That would take me several hours to go through and do that. I don't know that I'd have the organizational ability to do that either. So I typed that up at the time. There was a couple reasons. I wanted a record of where I was at that time, so that I could know for myself, what things were changing. I was in real estate. I was putting listings on the internet, and I was still doing all that from the time I was 54 until I was 56. I was still rehabbing houses. I was still being able to do all that, but I was still able to do competent book work. I used to, one time I did a Word document, and somehow I hit a button, where it was actually like, it had the correction things in it and stuff like that. I sent it to the executive secretary where I was at the time. And she goes, Todd, no, I didn't know you knew so much about Word. I said, well, I really didn't know that much about Word. I just hit the wrong button. It had there where you could correct, you could make your notes. I sent it to her, and she was like so impressed that I had such a great ability. So that's kind of funny back then. But still, I was proficient at Word. I was proficient at PowerPoint. I was proficient at Excel. I was okay at Excel. And I did a lot of creative documents. I did a lot of things for the builder that I worked for. This is my ability, when I was at 54 years old, I believe. So that was year one. So I started documenting just to keep it up. Those documents became handy too later on, when I started talking to my insurance company. Some things worked out through my insurance company that have, been surprises to me in my life, and things that happened because of, me being able to document this decline. Also, I used that document to kind of set the groundwork for asking for a disability. I think I am going to do a disability video for folks that want to have a better, clearer picture. I can tell you what I did and how well it worked. Again, I had documented, verifiable, proof that my income had gone to zero for 4 years almost. But when you have a high income and it goes to zero, and it's because of your mental condition, you need to be able to verify your mental condition through some professional, have your results from your test and that sort of thing. So the adult onset Huntington's disease, back then, that's what you call it when you apply for it if you want to get disability as an adult. I kept those notes back then because one day, and then I forgot even where they were. I had to look for them this morning just because that's, the organizational ability of me back then was so much different. And as I've said before. So now, that was then. So then 4 years later, I was going ahead and starting to think about getting on the disability thing because at that time, I knew that I still had the computer skills. I knew that I still had the ability. And I knew that if I waited too much longer, I would lose those. Also, I had the ability to talk better and say things that weren't so, off-putting and upsetting. Nowadays, I can be very, short in my terminology. I can make folks angry at the whip of a hat, all that. So we talked about that. So the first year I was, after I found out about this, back then even I said that the doctor thought I didn't even have Huntington's at the time that I did it. When I first started my channel, I was only getting a few views and I was only because I had just started it. And back then, even 2 years ago, it was way easier than it has been this year. So I was talking to that the other day with Leah at Help for HD. We did a little interview thing. In the beginning, I think I could have done the interview better, but maybe back then I would have been a little bit more overconfident in, the condition or decline of Huntington's disease. So after about 5 years, you start having trouble more with almost every task in your life. And, people always want to know the symptoms and that sort of thing. So, I'm just trying to, in a little bit of a thing today is just tell you how much difference a year can make. We got to take advantage of those early years, even if it seems impossible, even if it seems like, a daunting task. Again, maybe in my early years, it was easier for me because I was a little bit further ahead financially. My wife and I had always had income. We always had, I was in the real estate, so I had some fallback there. Through it all, those things helped out now here at the end of time. I don't want to say the end of time, but you know what I mean, later on. So then in the middle of my life, I tried to do the things that I said, go spend time with the kids, go in and do things with the grandson, all those things. And then the beginning of it, I had a little bit more clarity of brain. And now, 12 years later, I'm starting to have a lot of emotional issues that cause me to, just not be able to process things as good as I used to. And I'll talk about this for a minute because at this stage of my life, I want to be spending time doing things with my sons and my grandson, but also it's terribly hard for me to do things and spend time with them. And it's hard for that to make sense. But my brain is getting to the point where, I would be just as content to stay home. Driving now is becoming more of a chore. I can still handle, the road rules and all that. But if I drive for a longer period of time, even 20 minutes or 30 minutes, I just am not enjoying it. It's a real hassle. And then also, I'm finding that going out to events are becoming more tenuous for me. Sometimes my brother would go to things when he was alive, and he would come to Thanksgiving or he would go to the Christmas thing or something like that, and he would always want to leave. Unfortunately, I think that I'm going to be getting to that point. We watched my grandson's baseball game the other night, and somewhere in the middle of it, I just started getting to where, it was getting harder for me to sit there. I did get some bleacher seats that I like and I love, and those bleacher seats have helped because, it makes it more comfortable for me to sit in the bleacher. And then also, I'm getting more wobbly as I go on the steps up to, on top of the bleachers and that sort of thing. So what am I saying in all this? I'm saying that every year makes a difference, but also every year brings a whole new different challenge. So in the beginning, I was kind of like up here. I was competent enough to, be able to do this. I was still on my computer. I still had my, back in the early days, I was always a cutting edge when it came to technology. You know, back in the old days, I had the internet stick that nobody else had, air stick they called it. I could take that, take my tablet anywhere I wanted. Back then, it was my laptop, of course. I could hook up, you know, my cell phone and all that. Anyway, all those things that you were able to do. In the middle, though, you start getting to the point where you're possibly, you know, you can do the things that you want to do. So maybe sometimes I felt a little bit guilty about some. I don't know. I never really felt guilty about that. But then at the end here, you know, and I'm not saying it as the end, but as you get near the backside of this thing, all the emotional things that go along with this can start rearing their head. You can carry things around too long, maybe sometimes. So this is Huntington's disease, Todd. So this is the episode today. I think it's 99, episode 99. Again, there's going to be things at the bottom here and over there. You can click on those, go see more videos. Again, I am getting more views to my page now than I used to get. So, you know, over a 48-hour period, which is one of the counts that they use with the YouTube, you know, I'm getting 400 to 500 views. Now, that's in all the videos and shorts that I have, but that's, you know, really a lot more than I've ever gotten in the past. So if you would today, just remember, I'm going to do a video, and I might start the next video about the getting disability benefits and how that I did it and what worked for me. I didn't use an attorney. I called from my own home and talked to Social Security. I had some ducks in a row. I'll tell you what those were. But today, so that's the 100th episode, and that's going to be in May. It looks like maybe I'll wait, you know, I don't know. I don't want to wait till May to do another video. However, I want the 100th video to come in May. So I don't know how many weeks there are even left in this month. Huntington's disease, Todd. Go to my page and subscribe. Thanks you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.